many are led to believe that love will be their salvation, a pure, redemptive, and unconditional force. The narrative persists that encountering the right person, particularly for men, will miraculously heal deep-seated vulnerabilities never confronted alone. From the formative years of childhood, through pervasive stories and evocative songs, a subtle promise is woven into the subconscious. One day, someone will arrive and rectify all that is amiss. This belief takes root, not from inherent weakness or naivety, but from a societal failure to equip individuals with the critical tools needed to discern illusion from reality. But what if this deeply ingrained promise was never intended for fulfillment? What if the sought-after love is less about spiritual deliverance and more about intricate, often unspoken strategies? And what if Nietzsche, so often feared or misunderstood, foresaw this entire dynamic with unsettling accuracy? Nietzsche's writings were not fairy tales. They were incisive examinations, like a surgeon's scalpel, cutting through the masks of social convention, the myths of romantic idealism, and the emotional comfort zones meticulously constructed around individual egos. When he turned his analytical gaze towards love, the nature of women, and the complex ways in men which individuals relate, the picture he painted was far from flattering or polite. It was, however, starkly real. It is a reality that many, particularly men, still find profoundly difficult to confront. The uncomfortable truth is that what is often perceived as love for another is, in fact, a love for a version of that person which reflects an idealized self. It is a love for the validation she provides, the way her presence seems to affirm one's inherent worth. Yet, validation is a fragile substitute for genuine love, and what is passionately called love might merely be a carefully curated illusion designed to maintain emotional compliance. Historically, women, often denied overt avenues of power in a world that limited their visibility, were compelled to master influence through more subtle means. Lacking the symbolic swords of direct authority, they cultivated the art of unspoken communication and indirect control. This was not born from an inherent predisposition towards manipulation, but was a necessary adaptation to operating from positions of relative obscurity, while men predominantly occupied the more visible spheres of influence. It is in this nuanced domain that the modern man often falters, failing to perceive the intricate undercurrents. He frequently mistakes sophisticated strategy for inherent softness, confuses learned adaptability with guileless innocence. There is a tendency to perceive her as fragile, to believe her love is inherently unconditional, and to interpret her tenderness as unadulterated purity. This perception, however, often overlooks the refined, rehearsed, and precisely executed power that has been honed through necessity. While a man might openly display his emotions, labeling it vulnerability, she may be astutely scanning his words for the points of leverage. While he dreams of soulmates and eternal connection, she might be instinctively, not maliciously, calculating the costs and benefits of closeness, weighing her needs against her capacity for control and her desires against her ability to influence. This is because a crucial lesson, learned long ago, dictates that the individual who understands the unspoken game without overtly acknowledging it often holds the advantage. And what of the men raised in this dynamic? They are often conditioned to idealize, to place women on pedestals so lofty that their own blindness to the underlying realities is excused, even encouraged. The intricate strategies remain unseen because, fundamentally, there is a preference for the dream, the muse, the innocent, the healer. But what if these cherished roles are, in themselves, masks? Masks that women have learned to wear with proficiency because they have proven effective. Nietzsche sought to expose this discrepancy, not to denigrate women, but to dismantle the often fanciful narratives men construct about them. For as long as there is a belief in woman's inherent moral superiority, as long as her affection is presumed to be without underlying motive, men may continue to cede their own agency in a tacit exchange for perceived emotional security. And women, in turn, may accept this ceded power, not from a place of animosity, but because the prevailing societal system has inadvertently taught them its utility. In such dynamics, what feels like being loved can sometimes be closer to being skillfully managed. Perhaps the most unsettling part is the underlying comfort found in this arrangement, the comfort of adoration, the emotional anesthesia that allows one to avoid confronting the self. The moment the need for her to be a source of redemption ceases, one is forced to confront the origins of that profound need. And it is this confrontation, not the fear of heartbreak, that often constitutes the deepest terror. Fear, however, is a master of disguise, and romantic devotion is one of its most convincing costumes. One might believe they are loving purely, giving of themselves freely and without reservation. Yet, upon deeper inspection, what is being offered is not unadulterated love, but a form of implicit bargaining. If I entrust you with my heart, will you mend the broken parts of me I dare not face alone? This is not the seeking of a partner, but the desperate search for a solution. And while a soul is offered in this quest for comfort, she is listening, not merely to the words spoken, but to the underlying needs conveyed. This is not an act of cruelty, but a testament to the reality that every revealed vulnerability can become a marker on a map of emotional pressure points. These points are learned quickly, not with the intent to inflict pain, but to strategically position herself within an individual's psyche, thereby becoming seemingly indispensable. Nietzsche perceived this intricate dance, recognizing that what is commonly celebrated as love is often a subtle, ongoing contest for emotional territory. Who dictates the rhythm of intimacy? Who is the first to withdraw, and who is the last to concede? These are not primarily questions of affection. They are fundamentally questions of power. The disquieting truth remains: the one who needs less invariably controls more. A man might offer everything, his time, his attention, his very identity, and call it profound honesty. She, in turn, might provide precisely what is craved, just enough to sustain the pursuit, and term it connection. Yet, this is often not true connection, but a carefully choreographed performance. A culture has been constructed where women are often taught to influence without appearing to overtly lead, and men are conditioned to submit while believing they are the ones conquering. This is not an indictment of either gender. It is the cumulative result of centuries of societal conditioning, where men historically dominated the external world, and women, by necessity, mastered the internal one. And so, in the landscape of modern love, many walk willingly into this pre-existing dynamic, often with a smile. She doesn't need to argue, she merely needs to suggest. She doesn't need to demand, she needs only to express a desire. In doing so, she subtly shapes him, his decisions, his identity, often without ever raising her voice. This is not mere manipulation, it is a form of mastery. She is called mysterious because her internal world and motivations are not fully understood. This lack of understanding often stems from an unwillingness to question one's own deeply ingrained myths about love and relationships. The prevailing notion is that love is about seamless unity, a merging of two souls. She, however, may understand that love, in practice, also involves leverage. When she withdraws, it can be haunting, not merely because of her absence, but because the reflection of oneself that she provided has also departed. Nietzsche might have articulated it thus: "You never truly loved her. You loved the way she made you feel about yourself, She was the stage upon which you performed your perceived worth. Now that the stage is gone, you are left with the silence and the unvarnished truth. And herein lies a crucial distinction. She did not necessarily deceive. She simply ceased to perform the role that was unconsciously written for her. He did not see her, he saw his idealized projection of her. When she stopped embodying that projection, she was labeled cold or cruel. Perhaps the more significant betrayal was his own, for loving a fantasy and expecting a real person to inhabit it indefinitely. Nietzsche's critique was not a condemnation of women, but rather of men who resisted their own emotional maturation, who perpetually sought muses instead of mirrors, who longed for idealized angels rather than daring to engage with human beings in all their glorious and terrifying complexity. If one is prepared to cease assigning blame, then one is ready to undertake the challenging work of self-examination, not with guilt or shame, but with unwavering clarity. From such clarity, something truly radical can emerge. Not the cynical end of love, but its profound transformation into something more authentic. It has been taught that love is the highest virtue, that to love selflessly is the hallmark of a good man. But what if this celebrated selflessness is merely another guise for deep-seated emotional dependency? What if, beneath the poetic gestures and grand, sweeping declarations, there resides a quiet, persistent fear? If I don't give everything, she won't stay. And so, more is offered. More compromises are made. Parts of the self are systematically erased in an attempt to become what one thinks she desires. This is not an act of love for her, but an act driven by the fear of being without her. Such behavior is not nobility. It is submission artfully disguised as romance. And while he believes he is being courageous in his devotion, she may perceive something entirely different: control. Exerted not through overt force, but through his unwavering presence and his implicit willingness to orbit her sphere of approval. Herein lies the truth that Nietzsche hinted at, a truth so few are willing to genuinely hear. Love, when fundamentally rooted in need, is seldom an equal partnership. She may not explicitly ask for change, yet he changes. She may not overtly demand obedience, yet he offers it freely. The underlying question is why. It is often because he has convinced himself that her acceptance is tantamount to his salvation. However, she likely never asked to be his savior. She was merely being herself, and he, in turn, transformed her existence into a mirror, reflecting his own sense of worth. When that mirror inevitably cracks, the feeling is not just loss, but a profound collapse. It wasn't love that was being fiercely protected. It was the narrative. The narrative that proclaims, if she loves me, I am whole. If she stays, I matter. But narratives are not synonymous with truth, and when reality intrudes upon these cherished stories, it is often mislabeled as betrayal. Nietzsche would likely call it an awakening. The deception is not that she possesses power. The deception is the persistent failure to acknowledge it. She was called gentle, yet she was acutely observant. She was described as nurturing, yet she was inherently strategic. It was thought she surrendered, but in reality she was consistently choosing, always choosing, because she understood something that often remained elusive to him. The one who perceives the underlying dynamic with clarity ultimately holds the key. And now, finally, the carefully constructed illusion begins to fracture. Memories surface of moments when she smiled, yet something behind that smile seemed to be calculating. Recollections emerge of how the smallest emotional shifts were seemingly anticipated and addressed before they were even voiced. It was attributed to intuition, and indeed she was intuitive. But for her, intuition is often a tool for survival. It is her means of staying a step ahead in a world that historically did not grant her the power to confront directly only the power to subtly shape. This examination is not about assigning blame. It is about confronting reality. Many exist in a world where love is marketed as mutual surrender, but is often practiced as a complex exchange of mutual leverage, where vulnerability is extolled as a virtue, but frequently utilized as a form of currency. The moment this realization dawns, one either evolves or risks emotional breakdown. Most, perhaps, choose the latter, reverting to the familiar myth. They seek another muse, another partner for their emotional performance, telling themselves that this time will be different. Yet, it rarely is, because the fundamental roles have not changed, only the actors. Until the need for her to play a prescripted part is relinquished, one will never truly meet the person behind the mask. But what unfolds when the mask is finally gone? When the search for roles ceases and reality is embraced, one begins to notice what was, in fact, always present. Not manipulation for its own sake, not malice, but instinct. A woman, historically aware of her limited access to institutional power, naturally masters relational power instead. This is not necessarily because she inherently desires to control, but because this has often been the primary form of power society has permitted her to wield. Therefore, the crucial question is not whether she is ready to love, but whether one is ready to see her, and by extension oneself, without the distorting filter of myth. Only then can love cease to be a mere story and begin its transformation into a personal and perhaps even societal revolution.